Ruslan.
One of the most popular shows out there, and arguably the most popular show on Amazon Prime right now, is a show called Reacher. And that show is played by a Christian actor who has been getting some backlash for his portrayal in this show. Reacher is not a Christian character. There's quite a lot of violence, and it's fairly explicit. So the question comes down to, can a Christian play a role like this? Well, Alan Richardson is the actor that plays Reacher, and he responded to all of this on his own YouTube channel called Insta Church. So he puts up a lot of these like little mini church videos and is unapologetic about his faith. I find it very refreshing. And so here is his response to some of the backlash. Let's jump in.
I love playing Reacher. I love telling this story. I love playing a character who creates a kind of moral ambiguity that we should struggle against as we consider whether or not what he's doing is good all the time or morally right. I think that kind of thing is fun and fascinating, and I think escaping to that world as an audience, hopefully it's as enjoyable for you as it is for me to help bring it to life.
Historically, when people watch a show, they're always assuming the protagonist is right. The protagonist is the hero. But I would say in the last 20 years, oftentimes the protagonist is not always the hero. Sometimes he's an anti-hero. Sometimes he is morally Dexter-ish, right? You may have the villain as the protagonist, right? Yeah. And so it's interesting that he pointed that out, and that Christians aren't able to tell that, oh, Reacher, Alan is not Reacher. Yeah. Reacher is a fictional character.
Now, a lot of people criticize me, supposed Christians especially criticize me for playing Reacher, as if the only TV that should exist is seeing people silently folding their hands in the pew of a church. I mean, what kind of stories are we supposed to tell? If you look at Scripture, what do you find? You see 1,000 years of an infinitely holy God holding tension with human beings as he tells the story of who he is, reveals who he is through an imperfect people. So we get stories of paganism and a war and bloodshed and ghost stories, mysticism. We see miracles and magic, and we see life and resurrection and death. And we see this incredible canvas where God is completely unafraid to tell us.
So this is going to trigger a lot of people. He said the word magic
and mysticism.
This is going to trigger, but I'm going to come back to that thought. Just pin that thought for a second. Imagine if the story of Samson was being told today. How could you possibly tell that story without it being R-rated?
That's New Age.
But think about that. Like, think about if you're going to tell the actual story of Samson, how could you possibly tell that story without that being rated R? Samson came to the place called Leah. The Philistines came to meet him. They were shouting with joy. Then the Spirit of the Lord came on Samson with great power. Samson broke the ropes. They were like burned strings falling from his arms, and the ropes on his hands seemed to melt away. Samson found a jawbone of a dead donkey and killed 1,000 Philistine men with it.
Darkness.
Then Samson said, with a donkey's jawbone, I killed 1,000 men. With the donkey's jawbone, I piled them into tall pile. When Samson finished speaking, he threw a jawbone down, so the place was named Ramah. Okay, so if you guys have watched Reacher, that's how Reacher goes. I say all that to say there's some crazy R-rated stories, dare I say NC-17 stories. There's no way you can retell these stories from the Bible unless they're graphic, they're violent, right? So Alan is saying, how can you hold me as a Christian actor to a standard that you can't even hold the Bible to? That's a fair comparison. Now, the difference, though, to be fair, is that in season 1, there is a fairly explicit sex scene, full frontal nudity. Here's my theory on this, and maybe I'm wrong. My theory is that Alan wasn't in the same place with the Lord during the making of season 1, which was like 3-4 years ago, as he is now. All this Insta Church, all this stuff is fairly recent. So I think that he was maybe casually a Christian and recently became more and more serious about his faith within the last 2 years. There's a huge contrast in the scene in the second season. There's a huge contrast in the scene in the second season. So first season, full frontal nudity in the shower, craziness, fast forwarded. The second season, no nudity, they're kissing in a bed. That's the scene, and then it fades. So my opinion is his faith and his degree of influence probably have caused him to pull further away to I'm not doing these scenes anymore.
Nice.
Right? I'm not doing these scenes anymore. So that's my opinion. And we've seen the guy who plays the TV show You.
Yeah.
He put his foot down and said, I'm not doing no more sex scenes. And I don't even think
Christian?
I don't think he's Christian.
Oh.
And
He's
he's playing a serial killer.
He's like, I'm not participating in this.
He's like, I'm not doing this no more. So I think sex scenes in general are cringe and unnecessary and stupid. And hopefully Hollywood will move away from them.
I think it's laughable when people criticize me for playing characters that are not like saintly. You know, that's not my job. And I don't think God cares about only telling those kinds of stories. I think we can start conversations and we can reach people through these mediums in a way.
100%. Totally with him, except, Alan, you also have to be sober that people can criticize you for having your butt cheeks out and being in the shower naked with a woman that's not your wife. I think that's fair criticism from Christians as well, right?
Yeah.
To say, you can't tell this story, I'm with you, bro.
That's goofy.
Okay? Super goofy to say you can't tell the story, you can't tell violent stories, you can't. But if someone's like, Alan, not trying to look at sex scenes, man. G.
Yeah.
Right? I think that's a fair critique that I think you should hopefully be empathetic and considerate on why people would not want you portraying nudity. Fair? Yeah, go ahead.
I think God enjoys. And so here we are now, where we can get to the heart of the matter, where God has built a platform because of this show for me, where I can reach people who maybe don't think about these things all the time. And maybe for those who are struggling or feel lost or want to try something new, they can find something that brings them hope, like my faith has mine.
Amen.
And so,
Amen. I love that. The flip side to that is some young ladies who might discover you because you're putting up videos on InstaChurch might also discover season 1 where you're in the shower doing, you know what I mean? And you might cause them young ladies to stumble.
I don't know what's in that shower scene, but it also sounds like it's not good for the boys.
It's
either.
pretty explicit.
Yeah, it's not.
It's pretty explicit
not good for the boys either.
And by the way, there's no way that it would be so hard for me to even imagine a woman saying this and not being able to acknowledge, like, if he's a Christian woman, and she's playing a super strong boss babe, and there's a full-on frontal nude shower scene in season 1,
she'd be more roasted for it.
She'd be way more roasted. So I think there's some tension here, but I would hope that he wouldn't be so dismissive of people's legitimate concerns. And maybe I'm wrong, is that he wasn't in the same place 4 years ago, 3 years ago. Google when season 1 was season 1 2021. So that was almost 3 years ago. I've seen him more and more in my feed within the last, I'd say, 2 years.
Yep.
Being more overt about his faith.
Yeah.
Right. So that's my theory. Now, if he were to come out and clear that up, I think most Christians would be like, oh yeah, no, that makes sense. I got you. Like you weren't in the same place with the Lord. You weren't convicted by that. You were trying to get on, and perhaps you compromised a bit, but we like where season 2 is going, and we like that it ain't frontal nudity and it's not explicit.
Yeah.
You know, and again, I haven't finished season 2, but so far I haven't seen anything like that.
the purpose of what he's doing and what he wants to do in your life, and where that tension exists once humanity enters the equation. In verse 1, we get this. Now, God created the heaven and the earth, the heavens and the earth. We see that God is a creator. But what kind of creator? We go to verse 2 to find out. It says, now the earth was formless and empty. Darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters representing chaos. The earth formless and empty. The Hebrew word for formless and empty is tovu vavohu. It means wild and waste. There was nothing but wild and waste in the beginning. We sort of skip over the Big Bang, and we've got the planets forming and coalescing, but it's wild and waste. There's no good there yet. There's nothing usable. It's empty. And God's Spirit is hovering over the waters. And out of that, he creates a garden that is enviable among angels and man. The Garden of Eden. He creates humanity. He begins this saga that
he's a great storyteller, bro. The way he's communicating Genesis 1 is
smooth,
is hard.
It almost sounds like it's in there.
Yeah, that's
enviable
dope.
by the
enviable
angels.
by the angels.
I was like, that's not in there.
Yeah, it's not
fire,
but it sounds good.
An epic saga of love out of the wild and the waste. And I think that is exactly what God intended in the first two verses of the Bible to be revealed. That he is a good creator, and that out of the wild, the waste, and the empty of your life, he can create a garden if you let him. But the difficulty is the fact that when God wills himself over creation and says, out of this wild and waste, just with my breath, I will animate goodness and gardens and sunsets and sunrises and humanity that will learn slowly how to love each other. When it comes to people, he's a little standoffish because he doesn't want to breach free will, because he wants to respect the fact and see what you do with this opportunity to invite
he said when it comes to people, he's a little standoffish because he doesn't want to breach free will. That's the phrasing of all this is so interesting. Now Calvinists are going to throw a hissy fit in the chat.
Spirit in that hovers over you, or to try to do it on your own and stay in the wild and the waste and be the king and Lord over the emptiness? Would you rather be the king and the God of the emptiness and the wild and the waste, or would you rather participate under one who is the infinite, holy, good creator of all, in his garden, participate in that garden? That is the question that we face in the first two verses of the Bible. That is the heart of the matter. And when we are distracted with other questions of like, can you possibly be a Christian and play a character like Reacher? We're missing that moment, that confrontation that God is waiting for in all of our lives. And for some of us, it comes sooner than others. I hope if you haven't confronted that question yet, that this conversation helps bring you to it sooner. Do you want to be the God of emptiness, wild, and waste? Or do you want to be a servant in a garden?
That's good. Do you want to be, basically saying, do you want to be your own God in all of the chaos? Or do you want to submit to the God that controls and makes the chaos work for good? Click on his channel. I'm going to shout his channel out because there's some good stuff. There's some good stuff on there. I don't agree with him on everything. He's definitely got some of that Hollywood, LA worldview and some of the stuff he's talking about, right?
Really?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, not all of it, but like there's definitely some of that in there. But his channel is pretty cool, man. And so he just kind of talks about the Bible and Jesus and God and
It's the church.
It's the church, yeah. So shout out to Alan. I'd love to interview him someday, man. I think that'd be fun.
We should just bring him in. I'm sure he would be
I think
down.
I've reached out. He hasn't DM'd me, but I don't remember. You can go to Instagram and check. Yeah, but where's the line where the actor on sex scenes almost happens? What is he pointing people to? How is that testimony? So the line is he's not playing a Christian, right? So you understand that Christians can play villains. Like someone has to play Judas, right? So the line is not in what stories you can't tell or what characters you can't display. The line is making sure that there's a distinction between what is good and what is evil. And this is my opinion, right? And so he's telling you that Reacher is not a morally upright character. There's some moral ambiguity there that he's wrestling through. So when Reacher is fornicating, that's not Alan fornicating, and nor is that an endorsement of fornicating, right? That's not how the story tells it.
Yeah, I've also never seen like a movie where like a relationship blossoms and then there's an innuendo to a sex scene and they're not married, and that like makes me go like, I should go have sex before marriage.
Sure,
like
sure,
that,
sure.
like I've never like I get actual I get actual nudity where you're like, oh, like this could cause people to lust or whatever, but like an innuendo to a sex scene is never like crossed my mind that I'm even out that could follow me outside of the world of that this movie has created.
Yeah.
It's just a weird paradigm to like assume. Although I'll say I wouldn't make a movie that even has an innuendo to a sex scene, unless it's about a married couple.
Yes. Yeah. No, that's fair. That's fair. You know, Nori says, I think his perspective on God being standoffish is interesting. My experience has been the complete opposite. So I think here's the thing, right? Nori, I think when you're submitted to God, it is the opposite, right? If you're a follower of Jesus, that means that now I submit my will to God's will, right? So the standoffish part is, I think what he's getting at is he's holding to a more non-Calvinistic soteriology, where he's saying that God allows people to choose him and doesn't impede on people's will. I think that's what he's getting at. Is that fair? Right? Because absolutely, if you're a follower of Jesus, then your will submits to his. You lay down your life, you follow Jesus. You pick up your cross, which is a torture instrument. As a non-Christian, Jesus isn't going to force you. Now, I will say that in my personal life, I do feel like so this is weird. This is a cheat code. I personally hold to a Calvinistic soteriology for myself. Like, I feel like I didn't have a choice.
That's amazing.
I've right?
Before, yeah.
But I feel like for everybody else, y'all got to sort it out for yourselves, right? So that's how I reconcile that. In terms of soteriology means how I was saved. I feel like I didn't really have a choice. God just kind of plucked me, right? Now, but I do feel like people can choose God. Yeah, I know it's a cop-out. I know people are going to be triggered. This is why I love Leighton Flowers. Luke said, thank you for the super chat. Luke says, what about a TV show like The Boys where there's so much sex and nudity? Is that okay to watch? I personally have the show. I personally don't watch shows with nudity, nor do I recommend watching shows with nudity and sexual stuff. That's where I'm at. I think that's where we would align. Like, don't put anything evil before yourself.
Too many opportunities.
That's where I'm at. And I feel like that's a mature position, right? And if I am watching something that has sus scenes, I just fast forward those sus scenes.
Yeah. And if it's too much, I'll just be like, all right, I'm done with the show.
Right.
Like if I'm fast forwarding through like
a majority
lot,
of it.
Yeah, I'm like, wait, what? All right, I'm good.
Yeah. Back to the word magic, I pinned that. 2 Christian authors. One is J.R.R. Tolkien and C.S. Lewis. So our concept of fantasy and storytelling and everything that downstreams from that actually isn't from paganism. It's actually from Christian authors that used the concept of magic as communication tools to tell deeper biblical stories. So Lord of the Rings got a bunch of magic, but it's not witchcraft. There's a difference. The magic is just a tool, right? So, and you guys can go do the research and sort that out for yourselves in terms of understanding who J.R.R. Tolkien is, understanding who C.S. Lewis is. So that's just like a little fun tidbit. And I didn't know about that until...
You meant Harry Potter, not Lord of the Rings.
Lord of the Rings inspired Harry Potter. J.R.R. Tolkien directly inspired Harry Potter. I grew up being told Harry Potter is the devil, don't ever read Harry Potter. And then I found out that she's a Christian.
Yep.
Right? Shocker.
Yeah, I never read Harry Potter or watched Harry Potter.
I never read Harry Potter, but I was with my brother Arthur from the Apologia Center, and his son is in the middle of reading Harry Potter. And I said, are you weird about any of the magic stuff? He's like, no, because all the magic stuff she got from J.R.R. Tolkien, who's a Christian, and there's a reason why he uses this as storytelling. And Arthur is way smarter than I am and is not necessarily like a creative, artsy type. And for him to have that framework and that theology, maybe he's coming on next Friday. He's going to be here. All right, guys, we got to get out of here. I appreciate you guys. Hey, go get that prayer journal. Like, for real, don't play yourself. Go scoop one up. Get the PDF if you can't afford one. They're available now. blessgodprayer.shop. Go get one, and maybe buy one for a friend if you have one, and invest a month of consistently writing in your prayer journal. I promise you, you will be blown away. All right, so Patreon. If you're not on Patreon, sign up for Patreon. I got 3 new songs on there. You guys can check them out. And we're out.
Look, sometimes people struggle with quiet time because you're like, I don't know what to do. Yeah, so I got this Bless God prayer journal. So look, they got a section. I got praise reports, things I'm grateful for, prayers for other people, personal prayers, memory verse, I will get this done today. Then my time in the Word showed me, and notes just for free thinking. This thing's mad helpful. Just writing down things that you're grateful for, just doing that consistently, that's another really good way to fight depression and anxiety, because it's I don't know if it's impossible, but it's really difficult to experience the feelings of depression and everything and truly be, genuinely grateful for something and dwelling on something that you're grateful for. This actually is really helpful for that.